Hello everybody, welcome back to Rain and Pours. I'm Mitch and this is a bit of a different video. So today I am making a silicone mold to create my own trolley keys. So I bought these acrylic trolley keys and I'm going to make a mold of these so I can make my own out of resin. Now these acrylic keys come with a protective plastic coating on them or paper coating, and that's to stop them getting scratched. And it's really important when you're working with acrylic and making molds that the surface is as smooth and glossy as possible, because silicone will pick up whatever dents, marks, scratches are in your blank. So the original pieces are called blanks, and your silicone will pick that up. It has incredible detail. So what I've done is I've jumped ahead, I've taken all the plastic off, and what I've done is used some double-sided tape, and what you saw me quickly doing there on the side was applying the double-sided tape and using my craft knife to go around the outside to get as close a fit as possible. And then I've just applied that to the back of the trolley keys, and I've used that to stick them down to an acrylic disc. Now this acrylic disc was originally called a ganache lid. It's a thing that I bought when I was baking cakes, and I thought these would be perfect because silicone won't stick to it, hot glue won't stick to it, and it's awesome. So what I'm doing here is I'm building a dam using a hot glue gun, and I'm just making it a little bit higher than my trolley keys so that all of the silicone will be contained. Now the easier way to do this would have been to use some sheets of cardboard and just hot glue the inside and the outside down to the acrylic disc, but I'm not that smart and I like to do things the hard way apparently. Now the resin I'm using, the silicone I'm using is Just Resin 2-part silicone. So I got that from Just Resin here in Melbourne, and I do believe that they are global. And I'm mixing that, I believe it's 1:1, even parts into my cup. And you just mix this together, 1 part's blue, 1 part's pink, they make a purple mixture, and you're just mixing this until there are no streaks of either one of the colors left in the cup. So it's pretty easy. You want to stir really, really slowly and really gently so that you don't introduce any bubbles. Now it's impossible not to introduce them, but you want to do this as slow as possible so you reduce the risk of that happening. Now if you had a vacuum chamber, it's absolutely perfect for getting the bubbles out of the silicone. Compression chamber or pressure pot aren't really as suitable for this, but definitely a vacuum chamber would be, because it will suck all of the bubbles out. Now what you're seeing me do here is a double precaution, and I transferred my mixture into a second cup, and that's so I don't get any unmixed bits, and I did have some at the end, so that's why transferring into the second cup was ideal. Now you can see all of those bubbles on the surface of the silicone and pouring out of the cup, so I'm pouring from up high and in a really nice thin stream to try and reduce as many of those as possible. And I'm banging the acrylic disc on the bench and just trying to get as many bubbles out as possible. And what I'm doing here off screen is I'm actually using a hammer or something to try and knock as many bubbles out as I could. And I actually had a brilliant idea. I went in and I've got one of those massage guns with the ball head on the end, and I used that on, I put the acrylic sheet halfway on the table, halfway off the table, and I put that underneath and just vibrated all of those bubbles out, and it worked like a treat. There were no bubbles in my casts at all. Now I'm just very gently going around the outside and peeling the resin, the silicone back. I keep saying resin. Peeling it back very gently, and I'm very, very happy with this mold. It's super shiny, picked up all of the perfectly clear facets of the things, and here you can see I have made some trolley keys. So I just mixed up my normal Platinum 360 resin. It's a 2:1 resin, sets really nice and hard, and I used some Just Resin pigments to color these. Now one of those broke because I took it out too quickly and I flexed it too much, but not a problem. These were just my test pieces. And here I'm using a deburring tool to go around the edge. Now this is very, very chaotic. This is sped up by 1,000 times just for reference, just because it's a very long and lengthy process. Now I was showing the weight chart that Platinum 360 provides for its resin, so you don't have to mix this up by volume, and I've got a scale that I bought off eBay. And this scale is accurate to within 1/10 of a gram, so it's perfect for that. And here I am using some little fruit pieces that I found at Spotlight, and they make amazing little keychains, and I'll show you some keychains at the end. So again, just mixing up my epoxy, dropping some of these in, and I ended up the second time I did these was I mixed the fruit pieces into the resin, which made them a lot easier to disperse in here, because when I did it this way, there were air bubbles underneath, all sorts of weird things were going on, and they were too chunky and some of them stuck out of the resin. So mix it into your resin, save yourself some heartache. I also added in a little bit of holographic glitter, just for something special, and I'm pouring that into the molds. So this is a delicate process. And one thing that I would suggest is if you're not using these chunky bits, or if you're not using anything that's too big, use a syringe to fill your molds. You'll be able to get around all of those little, the keychain, where the keychain goes. The syringe was ideal for that. And I'm just using, this was a cake decorating tool again, it's just a little spiky tool. Just using that to make sure all of the pieces are coated, push them under the surface of the resin, and, you know, make sure everything's flowing where it should be. This resin cures in about 12 to 24 hours. Always leave it 24 hours just to make sure that it is fully set. And as for the silicone, the first mold that I did, I pulled it out too early. It looked set, but it wasn't completely set. So a couple of the keyring, the little knobs that go in the mold, which is where the keyring will be when it's cured, a couple of those looked like they were going to break off. They didn't, thankfully. They cured just fine. But yeah, again, just take it easy, let your silicone and your resin cure for the recommended amount of time. So yes, you did just see me use my heat gun to make that resin more fluid and make sure the bubbles disperse evenly, and off screen I used my long neck lighter to pop any bubbles that rose to the surface. So all I did was attach them to a plain silver keyring. I'll sell these for $5, but here's a close-up of how these look. They look really, really cute. I'm very happy with how they turned out, and I'm kind of obsessed with all the different colors in there. So you can see that little bit of glitter that we put in there, nice and sparkly, just a little bit of something extra. Okay, now I'll show you how I put the keychains on. So I did do some Googleation for how to open and close O-rings, because I was not familiar with the process and I struggle with that a lot. And something I have noticed is that some of these key rings come with the O-ring or the jump ring at the top instead of the bottom. So I'll show you what we do. So we've got 6 of these, that's 4, that's 6. Rightio. Now in the kit that I bought off Amazon, and I do have my table here, I've got just my spinner set up so I can get you closer to the camera. So I bought a kit off Amazon that came with key rings, and it came with these pliers. Now what I have learned from the YouTubes is that you want wire nose pliers which are flat on the inside, because they are not going to mark your jump rings. Now let me move these to the side, and I'll try and work to the side. So we're going to pop out these trolley keys. They come out nice and easily, and that silicone mold is ready to use again. Cool beans. Now the first thing that I do is I am running my finger around the edge of this, because it is a little bit sharp and a little bit jagged. So I'm going to take an emery board and just gently file away any jagged bits that I can feel. We don't want that in people's handbags, getting caught on things, or in their pockets. And this process doesn't take too long. You just file them down a little bit. That feels pretty good. And if they are quite bad, you can use a little deburring tool like this. So just run it very, very lightly over the edge. You don't want to take off too much of that resin. You're literally just deburring it and getting the sharp bits off. So I'll use a combination of the deburring tool and the emery board. You could use flexible filing pads if you've got them, or sandpaper. You could make your own little sandpaper filing tool. I've done that in the past, where I've just stuck sandpaper to a paint stick. That allows you to get sandpaper on the sides of the stick as well, to get into any tight spaces that you may not otherwise be able to access. Now using these deburring tools can be quite tricky, especially on curved surfaces. So just make sure to be careful with them, and you don't want to take off too much, and you want to try not to dig into the sides of your resin project. Now the trolley keys that I molded don't have perfectly flat edges. So that's why my molds here, or my casts, I guess, these are the casts, they don't have perfectly flat edges again because the silicone picks up every single detail. Now, if I can recommend something, is when you are sticking these down, try and make sure that there is no double-sided tape poking out of the edges, because that's also what's contributing to some of these burrs. You can see it doesn't take long at all to clean these up, a couple of minutes, less than 60 seconds each one. Just run your finger along the edge, find where it needs a bit of TLC. Now, if these are really bad and they're very, very sharp, you could use a Dremel. I don't trust my unsteady sausage fingers with a Dremel, especially not on clear resin like these are, because as soon as you sand clear resin, it turns sort of translucent. So the way you can get around that is by just wiping off the dust and spraying with a very quick coat of clear varnish, like a spray sealer, and that will turn everything nice and shiny again. Or you could do a flood coat if you were doing this on bigger pieces, but these aren't worth doing a flood coat on because, one, it would affect how it goes into the trolley, and two, they're only small pieces, so not much point. Wonderful, those are pretty much ready. Fantastic. So I'll just set that aside. Now, to open and close our jump rings, I like to use the bent pliers here, angled pliers, and I'm going to set them sideways on the jump ring. So let's zoom in, see if you can see what I mean. There we go. So on the jump ring, the pliers go on either side of the split, like this, and the motion you are doing is twisting up and down. So if I will show you this way, you're twisting the pliers away from each other like this, and then all you do with the keychain hanging, attach whatever you're attaching, and then you wiggle this back into place, closed. Okay, and you have un keyring. So let's do that again. Grab our jump ring. There is a difference between jump rings and split rings. Split rings are for keychains and things like that, so this one at the end would be a split ring. These are called jump rings. They basically just connect whatever your chain is hanging from to something else. So then we wiggle this closed, and your jump ring should meet perfectly flat, and that's not going anywhere. Okay, I'm going to finish these up. So this is what they look like. Alright guys, so that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this little process of me learning how to make silicone molds and mold something yourself. And if you try it, let me know how it goes in the comments. As usual, if you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.